Hello and welcome to a 7-year update. It's been 7 years since I installed the Brock Paver Base Pads, and I have had multiple requests to know how they're doing and a lot of questions about the install. Now, before I go any further in this video, I just want to point out that this is my opinion. A lot of the questions that I am answering, it's kind of conjecture. I don't have all the information, and a lot of it I haven't tried. But in my experience, this is what I would do and I would believe. So going forward, just keep that in mind and consult the Brock company themselves if you have a question that I don't address well enough for your liking. On the install, I actually did it wrong. I put them corner to corner, all 4 corners, and that is not how they tell you to do it. You want some overlap, and just even 30% is fine. You just don't want all 4 corners meeting. Now, my instance is somewhat unique in that I have a patio with a border, all 4 corners. There's a wall. And so I'll answer the first question that I had was, can you ride a car on it? I would if the transition point, meaning does it go from, cement to bricks or pavers or whatever? That matters. If it's just grass or there's a ledge and then you drive a car on it, I don't think that would hold up on those corners. But I don't know if that would work well at all anyway. So you'd want some kind of rigid transition point if you're going to be driving a car on it. So from sidewalk to pavers with the Brock Paver Base, yeah, no problem. Overall, though, it's holding up just fine. I have no complaints whatsoever. We did put a greenhouse out on the patio, and so I've got a video on that if you want to know about greenhouses. That increased the moisture because we have water just spraying in the greenhouse every single day in the morning and then in the evening. And so that made moss appear in certain parts of the bricks, which looks cool, but it still drains just fine. So drainage is not an issue. It hasn't shifted at all. I did tear up a corner a couple years ago because I was concerned about how it was doing. I don't have video of that. That was a couple years ago. And the material that the paver base is made out of is, is a little dirty, but it was just as good as it was previous. So let's get on to some more questions. So how well do you think the paver base would do if your pavers were not connected? I'm doing 20-inch pavers with about a 4-inch gap and putting rock and time in between. Interesting. I don't think you'd have a problem. Whatever's underneath the paver base matters more than the paver base. These pads are pretty dense, pretty good. I don't think you'd have a problem. I can't guarantee it, obviously. I haven't done it, but as long as you have the right, like if you've got rock, depending on the size of the rock, if the rock is big and you got a lot of gaps and there's a lot of shifting going on, then versus, pea gravel, I think might do better, something smaller than, you just want to make sure you don't have huge voids where things can shift. Another request for an update, I see a puddle. Now, this is one of the biggest regrets that I have of the whole patio in general is I did not spend the time making everything level. I thought I could just wing it, and I regret it. So I may actually, I probably won't, but I wish I had the time and the energy and the inclination to tear it all up and really make sure that that was level. No fault to the paver base pads whatsoever. I just didn't do the work up front. That is what matters. Make sure you're on a level surface. Obviously, grading for any water direction that you want. Okay, my paver stones are uneven on the base and keep tilting on the Brock paver base. Can I apply some cement-based sealant between the paver stones and the Brock paver base? I use the sealer sand on mine, and I have no problem. There's no movement or shifting whatsoever. So maybe that was 8 months ago. Sorry, I've got chronic fatigue, so everything takes forever. But I am having an upswing, so you're going to see more videos from me. That was from Indiana Large, I think. I hope that answers your question. So there's the sealing sand that you just throw in between, and that really keeps these, they feel cemented in place, really, they do. I love the pattern you got there. That's a herringbone. How did you cut the triangle pieces along the edges? I'm DIYing pavers for a small backyard and have never cut any bricks in my life. What kind of saw do I need? Now, I answered this question 8 months ago, but for those of you watching this video now, you want to get a wet saw from Home Depot or Lowe's. They have them in the rental department. Actually, I don't know if Lowe's has a rental department, but Home Depot does. And you just want to make sure that you keep the hose attached and running while you're using it. And there's going to be some spray, so you can set up a rag or something where it's spraying. If you have, mine sprayed right up against the house. And I thought I could wash it off, and it stained it. I ended up having the paint over it. So just make sure that you use a wet saw, otherwise you're going to be kicking up a ridiculous amount of dust, and you got to wear a mask. It's not worth doing it. Get the wet saw. That's the only way you should be doing it. And I'll put a link in the description, but you can pick these up at Home Depot and Lowe's. Wouldn't vinyl planks with drilled holes serve the same purpose at a cheaper price? Vinyl planks. Solid vinyl? That sounds crazy heavy, very expensive. There is no flex in vinyl. I think the paver base is the way to go. It's definitely easier to cut as well. I can't see a benefit to using vinyl. And the texture, there's a very, there's a bumpy texture to the Brock Paver Base. No movement from the pads, and it does not feel spongy. That was a question from Kevin. There is no sponginess whatsoever. It feels like it is, like those bricks are on a solid cement pad, like they're glued to it. That's how solid it. There's no indication that there's some kind of padding underneath. Would this serve well, as I'm thinking of doing a paver pad for the deck stairs instead of a concrete pad? A paver pad for the deck stairs. So if the stairs of the deck come down to a paver pad, yeah, and it would look better. I always like the look of bricks over concrete and cement any day. Cement, concrete has its place, but if you're looking for aesthetics, bricks in a herringbone pattern, it's hard to compete with the look of that. And there's some other great patterns too. Is putting an additional layer of leveling sand on top of the pads worth it to a 100% smooth surface for the bricks to lay on? No. You don't. As long as whatever you have is smooth underneath, you're golden. So you want to make sure that whatever's compact. Now that's why I took the lazy route in not doing the upfront work, is because it was so compact on certain spots, and I thought it would be fine. So putting an extra layer of leveling sand, I think, would defeat the purpose of having the Brock Paver pads. And as far as a smooth surface, you're not going to get a more even surface than those pads. And it was great to put them down and to be able to walk around with, while placing them. Ep loves the bricks. Beautiful job, thank you. And what brand or style are they? The bricks. Now, I'll point this out. There are bricks that are made for patios, paver bricks. They have rounded edges. Then you have other bricks that are made for building walls or a chimney, and those have very sharp corners. You do not want to use those bricks for a patio unless you're going to spend the time and grind down the corners, which I don't recommend. I just got red bricks from, those bricks were from Lowe's. And they had kind of a mix. So there were red and then some smatterings of gray in it. But don't use bricks with sharp corners. You will regret it. And your feet, if you have kids, they're going to get nicked, cut. It's not going to be fun. So they're probably more expensive. You may see somebody on like a Facebook page getting rid of bricks. I would just buy the decent bricks, or if someone's getting rid of a patio, paver patio, take those bricks, but don't use the wrong kind of brick for the job. Hi, Andrew. I'm about to install a patio using these panels. How much leveling sand did you use under the panels? The instructions are to use 1/2 inch sand, but I'm thinking of using 1 inch sand. So it is better to over-engineer than to do what I did and not take the time to level the dirt. 1/2 inch would have been fine if I took the time to level the rocky gravel underneath. Well, it wasn't gravel, it was like dirt and gravel all mixed in. It was really packed. So you don't need a 1/2 inch of sand, but in my case, I could have. Now, in my case also, every inch would have brought the bricks up, right up to the edge of the house, and I wanted that footing or whatever it's called of the cement of the foundation. I wanted enough space there to not risk water flooding, because I didn't know how it was going to work on the patio. So 1 inch of sand would have worked, but I don't think it's necessary as long as what's under the sand is, like I keep saying, level, flush, and packed in. Okay, here's a good question from Noreen Gonzalez. Would the base pads be able to withstand an above ground pool? Thanks for sharing your knowledge. Yes. You want to think of this just as a patio in general. It's that sturdy. So we actually put, now it was as big of a pool as you could fit on that patio. It was ridiculous. And when we drained it, it basically turned that patio into a pool for the time that it took for it to drain. But it didn't compromise the actual patio at all. Okay, so David wants to know, can this system be used for a deck with Belgard porcelain pavers on top? Ooh, sounds fancy. I don't know what Belgard porcelain pavers are, but now I'm curious. Let's take a look and see. Yeah, that's a very classy look. I don't see why not. If they are thin, I don't know. So that was a while ago that David asked that question. That was in my peak chronic fatigue time. So, David, I would like to know from you if you did it, if you went through with it. Someone has slabs weighing 43 pounds. Whew. Can the Brock Paver Base use that for insulation? I don't see why not. And everybody's asking, does it feel squishy? Oh, weeds. Let's talk about weeds. Somebody's asking about weed barrier. I did put a weed fabric below, and nothing's grown up between the cracks whatsoever. So that is that. That's what I think seems to be doing just fine. Is this foam? Why can't I just use 1 inch thick insulation foam? I wouldn't use foam. Besides, this isn't a foam. It's a dense material, but I would never describe it as a foam pad. Foam usually has the sense of air pockets. And when you have air pockets, you have a way for this to crush, where the Paver Base pads don't. Is this installed in a Four Seasons location? Yes, we have very definitive over 100-degree summers for multiple days running, and we have below freezing for multiple months. Never went below 0, but it's still below freezing. We're talking Fahrenheit here, and the pads are just fine. So the one thing that I'll point out that I don't have the answer to is if you are doing this on a very high water table with very loamy soil or clay-like soil. Like I said, I have very rocky dirt. And so it's very hard and compact. So if anybody out there is watching this video and you have paver bases installed, Brock Paver Base Pads, let me know how it performs on that. There might be information on their website. I'm sure there is. So here's what I'm going to do after this. This review, this is 7-year review, and I have no complaints about this. I'm glad I used it. The next update I will do will be if there's ever a problem. So if you don't see an update from this Brock Paver Base, then there's no problem. So it could be 15 years from now. I'm expecting this to be just as great. Now, I am not affiliated in any way whatsoever with Brock Paver Base Pad Company, and I will put a link in the description. If you buy them from Amazon, I do get a small commission, but this is not a paid-for ad by Brock. I bought them all with my own money, and so just so that's clear. But let me know if you have any other questions, and I'll try to get to them. Thanks for watching and have an excellent day.